Before we proceed to the next module, I want to mention lazy copying. Sometimes your application handles huge objects, like maybe something like a video or big graphics. And if you copy that huge object into pasteboard, it will stay there and it will take up space. And this might make your computer work slower. There is a concept of lazy copying, and the idea is when you copy an object, you don't really copy an object into the pasteboard. You just copy some empty pointer. And when the other application actually needs something from the pasteboard, when it tries to paste, this is when you actually put the object you wanted to copy inside the pasteboard. So you kind of wait until you really need. And this is how it works. This is the code, and this is a method that is going to be called when something is requesting that object, when something is trying to paste. Now, the problem with this is when you copy something, then you might wait for some time and then you paste somewhere else. You expect to paste something that was copied back then. But the data might be changed because you were waiting and something else was happening. And if you were to implement lazy copying, you have to think about this. And if the idea is to copy something that was there at the time of copy, you might need to save a snapshot of the current object. Don't put it into the pasteboard, but just save it somewhere and pass it inside here when the other application or just other process is called an object from a pasteboard. Okay, so the topic of this last module is drag and drop and how to implement drag and drop. Now it turns out drag and drop uses pasteboards as well, because when the drag starts, some data is copied onto the dragging pasteboard, and this is something different from the general pasteboard we just used. And when the drop occurs, when you release the object, the data is read off the dragging pasteboard and put somewhere, processed somehow. So those are some methods, some types of operations for dragging, and they all go from NSDrag operation, and we just go ahead and try. So what I want to do is I want to drag a letter from my custom view so that I can drag and drop it onto other applications. And I want to drag and drop them as characters, of course. So first method to implement, going to go to the end, is NSDrag operation. And the method is called dragging source operation mask for local and the Boolean flag. Okay, so only thing I want to do here is return dragging operation copy. Yeah. Yeah, not dragging, just drag operation copy. And this is the type of the operation I want. I don't want to cut the object, I just want to copy it and paste somewhere else. And this method will be called twice. First, the flag will be yes, and that will mean the dragging occurs locally inside my application. The second time it will be called with the flag no, and this will handle the dragging outside my application. This is what I want. Now, we didn't take this Boolean flag into account. We didn't say if flag equals true and do something else, because we could do something like if the flag is yes, then that means inside the application I want to copy. But if flag is no and my stuff goes outside the application, I want to maybe cut. But we want to copy in both cases, so we just leave it like this. Okay, so this drag and drop is about the mouse, and we need a mouse event to handle. So let's go to my H file and create a new NS event. And I'm going to call it mouse down event. This is the event that happens when I click the mouse. I don't yet release it, but this is where dragging starts. Okay, so let's create a method for handling this. The method will be void, and it's going to be called mouse down, and we have it, and it accepts NS event by default. We have it because we inherited from NS view. Okay, so first let's say our mouse down event we just created would be equal to that event that happened when I click the mouse. So now I have my actual mouse event here. And remember, the events have a lot of information we can use, like the most important one is where that event happens, the coordinates of that event. Okay, so this is actually, that's it. The most important method I want to use is a method that happens when I drag the mouse, when I clicked and then move the mouse. So this would be a method called mouse dragged. And again, it passes NS event. So let's get the coordinates of that dragged event. Let's create a new NS point. Again, this is a C structure, call it down, and call mouse event, mouse down event, location in window. So we're getting where this first thing happened, where this event happened on my window. Next, let's get the point for drag. And this time we can get it from the event, like this, the event. Location in window. Okay, now we have locations of both points where it started and where dragging is happening. Let's get the distance between those. So float distance, and we can use a function that's called hypot, and this is just the Euclidean distance between 2 points. And the points we want to use is, well, down.x minus drag.x, and the second point is down.y minus drag.y. So in two cases we don't really need to do anything. So first case is if distance is too small, if that dragging just started. So let's say if distance is less than 3. The other case is if I don't really have anything to drag, if my string is empty. So let's say or string.length is equal to 0. So in those two cases, just return and nothing will happen. No event will be handled. Okay, if we don't return by this point, we continue. And let's create a new NS size, call it S, and this would be the size of the string with the attributes we have created. So let's say string size with attributes. Now the beauty of this is we didn't really need to, come on, NS size. We didn't need to create this dictionary somewhere else, and we didn't need to use it. We can just create a new one right here on the fly and calculate the size of the string with those attributes. We don't need to show that thing. All we have to do is just come up with some attributes, and then we can generate the size. This is really useful because you don't have to think about how big your string will be with the size of font 22, and what if I make it underline, will the height change, how much will it change? You can just use this size with attributes. Okay, now what I want to do is when I drag this image, when I drag my data, I want it to appear as I'm dragging a letter, but I don't have a letter to drag. The thing I can drag, the thing I can move is an image. So let's create a new image and put the string we have on that image and then drag that image. So let's create NS image and call it an image. So just create ns image unlock, and the size, well, we know the size, init with size as. Now let's create ns rectangle called image bounds, and the problem here is again that. So let's get image bounds dot origin. That will be on a 0 point, and image bounds size is that size of the string. Okay, before we do something to the image, we have to lock the focus on that image, because when you work with the image, you have to kind of set it into focus. So let's say an image lock focus. Okay, and now we can call self draw string centered in image bounds. So this will draw our string inside in the center of those bounds. Okay, and now we can unlock an image unlock focus. Okay, now let's get the location of the drop, of where we drop the thing. So ns point again, p, and this is where we convert from one coordinate system into another. Remember, we can say self convert point, and we pass the point called down. This is where I want to do it. From view, and if I say nil, this will be my window. So this is just a shortcut for saying self window. And let's now do this. Px is equal to p.x minus the size, the width by 2, and same for py. Py equals py minus s height by 2. Okay, now it's actually the time to use the pasteboard. As I said, drag and drop is actually using the special kind of pasteboard called the drag pasteboard. So let's get ns paste board called pb and get the new ns pasteboard, but not the general one, the paste board with name, and the name is ns drag pboard. Now we got the dragging pboard, which is shared among applications, and let's write self write to pasteboard and pass it the pb. Now remember, we created this ns pasteboard thing right here, and it was a generic method to write something onto pasteboard. Now we used it with a general pasteboard, which is for text, but we made it universal. You pass it a pasteboard and you write something onto the pasteboard that was passed. Now we can use this method with any type of pasteboard, and in this case we're using it with the ns drag pboard. Okay, so we wrote it there, and let's now self draw image. And it's called an image. At p, the offset will be no offset and a 0 point. Oh, it should be actually an S0 size. The event is mouse down event. The pasteboard to work with is pb. The source is self. And let's specify the slide back thing to yes. Now here I have a problem. Draw image. What is the problem here? Save. Not draw, but drag image. For some reason I said draw. Yeah, so we need to drag that image, and let me make this nicer. So this should work. And let me just do this. Let me save up some space here and run my application. Now, if I just type something like L and drag, you can see I'm dragging that image. And now this is an image that was generated on the fly. And the position of that is updating each time I drag my mouse. Now I can move it here, nothing happens, but I can move it also here, and it kind of becomes a string as soon as I release, and now it's here. And it's still inside this place because, oh yeah, you can see nothing happens if it's too close. And it's being copied. Okay, so this is basically how you work with drag and drop. And next time we're going to continue on top of this. We're going to drag and drop within our application, and we can handle more stuff that happens, more events that happens when you drag and drop. Okay, this is lecture 13. See you next week.